Vice President Mike Pence says President Trump has not yet decided whether or not to declare a national emergency in order to build his border wall. So what exactly happens during a national emergency? Well, there's actually no clear federal definition of a national emergency. It's declared by the president if the president deems it necessary. It gives the president special executive authorities. For example, the ability to quickly amend laws when the legislative process is too slow. Under the National Emergencies Act, passed by Congress in 1976, the president must specify which powers he intends to use. There are 136 statutory powers that could become available to the president if he declares a national emergency. This is according to the Brennan Center for Justice. There are at least 2 statutes that could allow Trump to build his wall. The law allows military officials to order troops to stop any civil project and instead work on authorized projects essential to support the military and national defense. These powers are meant to authorize military construction during wartime, according to former Homeland Security Secretary Jeh Johnson. But forget the wall for just a moment. These emergency powers are vast, and the National Emergencies Act doesn't require the powers invoked match the nature of the emergency. Among some of the enhanced authorities the president has available, according to The Atlantic, is the power to seize control of U.S. internet traffic, blocking certain websites and ensuring pro-Trump content pops up first during searches. The president could suspend the law that bars government testing of biological and chemical agents on unwitting human subjects. He could impose economic sanctions on American citizens suspected of providing support to foreign terrorists. He could also deploy troops inside the country to act as law enforcement. Since 1976, presidents have declared, get this, at least 53 national emergencies, including the Iran hostage crisis, the 9/11 terror attacks, the swine flu outbreak, the violence in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and the spread of nuclear weapons in North Korea. So that is what we're looking at when we're talking about the declaring of a national emergency.
My goodness. Joining us now, Ned Price, former CIA agent and National Security Council spokesperson. Okie doke. Walk us through this. The administration describes the situation at the border as a security and humanitarian crisis. And I want to stay on the humanitarian crisis. I remember the first time I heard it this morning, I'm like, are they talking about Yemen? Are they talking about the children separated at the border, the 2 that were killed or that died? Excuse me. What exactly are they referring to? Because the president turned it into a massive crisis leading up to the election. It turned out America didn't make it their top priority and Republicans lost. And then he kind of went crickets. And now we're back.
Well, that's right, Stephanie. What the president is referring to is not a national emergency, as Ali was outlining, but it is, in fact, a political emergency for this president. It is a political imperative. The president, starting during the 2016 campaign, has put himself in this political straitjacket, promising his base that a wall would solve all of our problems, whether it was crime, whether it was drugs, whether it was terrorism, and now that debt is coming due. What we have learned, in part due to the fantastic reporting by some of your very colleagues, is that the threats that the administration has touted on the southern border are illusory. For example, take the terrorism threat. We now know it hasn't been 4,000 people stopped over the course of the past 6 months. It's been 6. But even take that number 6. That does not mean that border agents on the southern border have stopped 6 dastardly terrorists trying to sneak into our country. No, those were 6 people whose names, at least closely matched enough. One of the hundreds of thousands of names on one of multiple U.S. government watch lists. It was Senator Ted Kennedy who often used to complain that he had trouble flying because his name did the same thing. We also know that 85% by air, and even President Trump's own State Department in July of last year said there's no credible evidence that terrorists have attempted to seed operatives via the southern border. This is completely made up to help the president achieve this political emergency.
So let's talk about how committed the president and his staff are to this. Kirstjen Nielsen has repeated the numbers and the claims that the president's made. Sarah Sanders was challenged on Fox News, and Kellyanne Conway was challenged on Fox News about this as well. Let's listen to her interaction with Laura Ingraham about this.
This is the 3755 number does not refer to people at the southern border. Quote, known or suspected terrorists prevented from traveling to or entering the U.S. by DHS in FY17. I believe that includes in some international airports where Customs and Border Patrol says
overwhelmingly at the airport.
But the other two statistics on here were about the southern border, so I think it got it got unfortunately conflated by a colleague. That was an unfortunate misstatement, and everybody makes mistakes, all of us. The fact is, it's corrected here.
All right, so what do you make of that? That sounded a little like a walk back, but then we heard Halley's conversation with Vice President Pence, and they don't seem to be walking back. I mean, these are facts, Ned. It would stand to reason that if you tell people that there are 3,755 terrorists or terrorist-like people making it through the southern border, a lot of people on the fence about this one would say, build the damn wall.
Can I just make one point quickly? The reason these facts matter so much is that the majority of Americans don't live at the southern border. So when you tell them there are immigrants, terrorists pouring in, they believe you because they have no access to see that.
These are also supposed to be facts about our national security, Ali and Steph. And the executive branch has a monopoly, or at least close to a monopoly, on information pertaining to our national security. The executive branch controls what is classified, what is considered classified, and what is not. And yes, it was unfortunate that Sarah Huckabee Sanders spread what I think are lies far and wide, as did some of her colleagues. But it's actually more than that. It's not just unfortunate. This, it seems to me, is the deliberate weaponization of classified information. You will notice that once Julia Ainsley's reporting indicated that the number wasn't close to 4,000, it was actually 6. It was then last night that we heard Secretary Nielsen, the Secretary of Homeland Security, say, "Well, we can't provide the specific numbers because that's classified." It seems to me that the administration was more than happy to tout large numbers. But when it comes to specific and probably much smaller numbers, they're resorting to this age-old excuse that, no, we can't talk about that because that's classified. And to me, that smacks of...
So that's political.
That's political.
Yeah.
That is what is politicization, pure and simple.
It is, since 9/11, the politicization of national security stuff is just really dangerous because, as Ned says, people like you and me don't have the ability to prove them wrong. If we don't have, I mean, the irony, though, is that Julia Ainsley's ability to prove the administration wrong comes from the administration's own statistics. So at least we're getting that from the government. But if they just decided to not tell us or decide certain things are classified, to Ned's point, we may not know the truth. And you can go out there, and the president can go on there on TV tonight and say things that we may not be able to prove as wrong because we don't have access to some of that information. Ned, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Ned Price is a former National Security Council spokesperson and former CIA officer as well.
This is major stuff.
Hey, MSNBC fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down there and click on any of the videos here to watch the latest interviews and highlights. You can get more MSNBC for free every day with our newsletters. Just visit msnbc.com/newsletters to sign up now.